Hello there, good morning. Saturday the 2nd of October, and our top story is that the Prime Minister has promised reform of the criminal justice system following the murder of Sarah Everard by a serving police officer.
Boris Johnson urged the public to trust the police, but admitted it's infuriating that cases of violence against women and girls are not being taken seriously enough. He also said the government needs to come down very hard on problems in the Metropolitan Police. Simon Jones has more.
The death of Sarah Everard prompted an outpouring of public grief. Now the government says it's determined her murder will bring about permanent change in how society deals with violence against women and girls. The Prime Minister says there are too few prosecutions and convictions for sexual violence.
The time from report to referral, from referral to the court proceedings, from court proceedings to the conclusion, all three of those segments is far too long. And what you're seeing is the whole system snarled up with evidential problems, with data issues, with mobile phones disclosure, all that kind of stuff. And it's a nightmare for the women concerned.
Wayne Couzens kidnapped, raped and murdered Sarah Everard. He then dumped her body in Woodland in Kent. Cars registered to him had previously been linked to 2 allegations of indecent exposure, but he wasn't identified as a potential sex offender. It's claimed Couzens also used a WhatsApp group to swap misogynistic messages with officers from the Metropolitan Police, the Civil Nuclear Constabulary and the Norfolk Constabulary.
We've also got to address the issues going on within the police force, and you'll have seen this stuff about the officers on the WhatsApp group. We've got to come down very hard on them.
The Home Secretary says the police must raise the bar by taking harassment and flashing more seriously. Priti Patel told The Telegraph they should not be considered low-level crimes. The Met says it's putting more officers in places where people feel unsafe.
We're absolutely committed to tackling violence against women and girls, and that is going to be one of our focus. It is one of our priorities. So you will see us out on patrol in hotspots.
But there are calls for more scrutiny of the police themselves.
How many times have we heard lessons will be learned, and how often really are they? I think there are some things that need to be done far more publicly, and one of those is a public inquiry along the lines of the Macpherson inquiry into the murder of Stephen Lawrence. That was a seismic change for policing in relation to racism. We need that around misogyny.
Opposition politicians accuse the government of starving the police and courts of resources, but there's a growing consensus that the death of Sarah Everard must act as a watershed moment. Simon Jones, BBC News.
The Army will begin delivering fuel to forecourts from Monday to try to ease the pressure at petrol stations.
Ministers are also allowing up to 300 of the 5,000 HGV drivers being recruited from abroad to come to the UK immediately. The government says that the rest will arrive later this month. Our political correspondent Peter Saul has more.
We started to see scenes like this in parts of the UK last weekend. Frustrated drivers desperately trying to fill up. And now the government is calling in the military. Some service personnel will be out providing support today. And from Monday, soldiers will be driving petrol tankers themselves. So why has it taken so long?
Well, first of all, you're asking military personnel who are trained to drive tankers cross-country to take tankers full of highly inflammable liquids into built-up areas onto forecourts where you and I fill up our cars. And it has to be the case that we make sure they get the appropriate training to do so. I think we would all expect that to be the right thing. And at the same time, we have to work with industry so that we know where we're sending them. We can't just send them to random garages. It has to be properly deployed.
As well as the support from the armed forces, more drivers will be allowed into the UK from overseas. A new scheme will enable up to 300 tanker drivers to come and work here immediately. Haulage firms will find potential recruits and apply to the government for licences. Up to 4,700 lorry drivers specialising in food delivery will start to arrive from the end of this month. This temporary visa scheme has been extended until the end of February. And 5,500 poultry workers will be granted the right to work here too until the end of the year. Ministers hope these measures, along with efforts to recruit more British staff, will address some of the problems in the supply chain. But there could still be a tough winter ahead. Peter Saul, BBC News.
Now, an experimental drug used to treat severe cases of COVID cuts the risk of hospitalisation or death by about half. This is what clinical trial results from the US suggest. Now, if approved, the pill, called Molnupiravir, would be the first oral antiviral medication for COVID-19. Medical advisors in the United States say the results are very good news, but urged caution until the data has been reviewed.
Well, vaccine passports came into effect for the first time last night in Scotland. People need proof of vaccination to get entry into nightclubs or large events. The scheme will be mandatory from the 18th of October, and the rules are seen as a way of allowing events to go ahead despite surging cases of COVID.
We've ultimately made a decision as a society to respect people who don't want to get vaccinated. I think that's why it's a little bit disappointing, even though myself I'm double vaccinated, that there isn't an option for people who don't want to get vaccinated. We're not sort of respecting their opinions by being able to submit a negative lateral flow and then still being able to go to a nightclub. We're saying effectively, don't come.
So the next time you go clubbing in Scotland, need your passport. Okay.
I'll be ready. I'll be ready.
Be ready. A retired general is to lead a review of the NHS and social care in England with the aim of reducing regional inequalities. The former Vice Chief of the Defence Staff, General Sir Gordon Messenger, is going to look at developing a pool of future leaders, including some from outside the health and care sectors. NHS providers, which speaks on behalf of hospitals and other health trusts in England, said that international evidence shows that the NHS was one of the most efficient health services in the world.
That volcano that's been erupting for the last 11 days on the Spanish island of La Palma is spewing out of control again. 2 new streams of lava now threatening further destruction. Many homes and crops have been destroyed and thousands of people have been forced to evacuate since the eruptions began last month.
Now, I know you're excited about this.
I was intrigued by this, yeah.
What we're talking about is Adele and what the number 30 projected onto the side of buildings around the world could mean. And this is, I've given it away, of course, sorry. According to Adele fans, it could be a hint that the singer's about to release some new music.
Yeah, remember her last album was called 25. And before that, I think it was 21, wasn't it? And now the number 30 has suddenly been spotted on landmarks. You've got the Louvre in Paris there, the Empire State Building in New York, the Acropolis, the Houses of Parliament. And speculation is growing online that this is all about Adele releasing a new album.
And did you look at her website? Didn't you say that's been
relaunched? Apparently it had changed overnight and the font had changed. There's nothing on it, but all the hints are there. It's almost like we're being hyped up about this.
No.
Yeah,
we haven't bought into it by talking
about it.
Not at all,
no. And we'll do that for the next 4 hours.
At least.